That's how the entire world was conquered. It wasn't actually through war. It was literally done at the highest levels, at the highest leaders, saying, I will make you priests, I will make you kings, or we'll fucking kill you.
But who is the puppet master behind the scenes? Can we talk about who that is? I mean, we're in modern day right now. We've already established, I think, at this point, and I think we're all pretty much in agreement that government seems to work in really good synergy. We've got the Bilderberg group that meets every single year, which is all the world's leaders, even guys that supposedly hate each other. We seem to be at war with countries like China and Russia and Iran and Iraq, but yet we have open trade relations with them, and we let China rip off our IP and let them import everything they want to the United States without any tariffs. It's just always funny to me that all these supposed enemies, when it comes to economics, we have no problem dealing with them. Just, in newspapers, we hate them. And so I think we're all pretty much in agreement that that's going on. There's some sort of one world government, whether it's the World Economic Forum or that's just sort of a front for it, I guess, to be discussed. But who is the puppet master behind the scenes?
Well, let me say this before I give you that name, because people are just going to be like, there ain't no fucking way. And here's one of the major key flags. There's more than one. Main key flag for me is, what major event occurred at the period of at World War I that most people don't know about or pay attention to today, that the world received, a world event. And when I say world event, most of the people received this after World War I. And nobody realizes they all received it at the same time. Social Security numbers.
Okay.
Germany was a test for tracking numbers and being able to track people. The whole point of Germany in World War II wasn't to win the war. It was to test things you morally can't test without war.
Tim, Josh, we have... This is something we haven't touched on at all, because we have had some private conversations on what we think the real motives were behind, Hitler's rise to power and what was going on there. And I don't want to dive too deep into this, unless maybe this is where you're going. To me, it is very, very, very hard to reconcile how somebody who I believe was Jewish can grow such disdain for people that he's willing to literally burn them alive. And we always thought there was a lot of other malicious ideas behind the scenes, whether it's human experimentation, whether it's technological advancements and just sort of using people as fuel for that, whatever it might have been. And so that's really fascinating that you say that, particularly when you think of Operation Paperclip and going in and siphoning off all of their scientists and elevating the world's technology in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah, well, and try to remember that it's so you know, Hitler was a puppet. He was literally a Joe Biden. I mean, in literally the full sense. People are like, he was an evil man, and it's like he was literally like Joe Biden. He was seeking power and was taking orders directly from the Vatican, just like Mussolini was, which is funny because most people don't even recognize. Just throwing common today stuff out. All the immigrants being moved around the world right now are being moved around by the same organization that was moving the people wanted for war crimes after World War II, the Red Cross.
Now, does that you said something that kind of sparked a bit of a light bulb in my brain, right? Being the Vatican, is that maybe coincide with why the Vatican turned such a blind eye to everything that the Nazi Party was doing, especially during the earlier days of the war, is because they were behind all of it to begin with?
Well, yeah, they had orders to get rid of all the Jews. They just didn't persecute them in Italy. They moved them to Poland and stuff like that. This was a clean, we don't do this zone, which is interesting because you got to keep in mind, most people don't realize the Jews being executed are not the same ones as the one that were given protection in Israel because the ones that the old Jews, the Nazis or whatever I'm talking about, they were all given security in Israel, and Israel got its nation, while all the non-Qanazi or whatever were the ones all being assassinated. It was, to be specific, it was the Roman Jews that were being assassinated. It was only the Roman Jews being assassinated. And that's why I'm saying, when we're talking about they have a history of culling their own population to collect funds because they are the next of kin. They use family member and societies as a banking system when you need to draw money that you can't get fast. It's a quick way to literally, depend upon how many people you have and the wealth of your people, that's the quickest way to draw money. Kill half of them, take their money, and spend it on anything you want. Because we're not talking about sane people that aren't sociopathic. You know what I mean? We're talking about people who do whatever the fuck they want. And the most people don't realize the best system of getting money is fucking kill your people.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
I mean, that's why the guy that fucking is in prison's doing it. I mean.
Huh. Yeah. So World War One. Social security numbers pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's a control mechanism. Now you know where everybody is. Now you know what everybody's doing. I mean, I think there are some legitimate, I use this word very loosely, benefits to it in a structured society. But again, on the nefarious side, it does make a lot of sense because now you can control everything about a person. What is your theory behind it?
It's Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un?
Kim Jong-un.
As in, like, North Korean leader.
Yeah, talk shit about him, and you'll have your kids fucking cutting their shit off in streets and fucking not knowing what sex they are. Because nobody knows crazier than that motherfucker. And trust me, nobody knows crazy than that.
I agree, he's crazy. But you think he's one of the puppet masters at the top?
Oh, I think he is the guy on the top.
I think he's the top of the rung.
He is God of the world. In every sense of this biblical stuff, he's God of the world. He's playing the physical high emperor. All the Chinese, we're the higher gods of the 9 realms, is no bullshit how they're running the world. Their myth is their actual reality. It's the rest of us it don't work for.
Right.
Nobody is more proud about their society and oust nobody else than the Asian community.
So why would North Korea be so isolated from the rest of Asia? Like they're made out to be public enemy number one.
I mean, the rest of the world, right?
You think it's intentional?
He runs China. China doesn't run him. He's a hidden offshoot. So no, because keep in mind, the key part about this, the number one reason why the gods became hidden is because they found out, cause and effect, you keep doing that shit and people know who to kill.
Right.
And remember, all myths and legends will tell you only a god is allowed to kill another god.
But
well, it's old school white. It's old school white trash rules. We can fucking beat the shit out of everybody, but don't get in my family's fucking business. We don't treat each other immorally, but don't get in my fucking family's or my family beats the shit out of you. That's all it is. It's thug fucking life, man. I kid you not. Like, you got these highly educated people, and trust me, they're not operating any different than the guy fucking slinging crack and hookers down at the end of the fucking corner. He's just slicker about it.
So let me ask you something, because I've got to go to the barber probably this week. Would my best option be to get the Kim Jong-un cut? Would that win me any favor here? Because the world power here, you're telling me the leader of our world, I don't even want to say the free world, the leader of this world has the doofiest haircut I've ever seen. Yeah. And his best friend is Dennis Rodman. Who knew?
Yeah, well, he's not the one you should be scared of, though. The sad part is he's not the one you should be scared of. It's his fucking sister you got to be watching. You got to worry about.
So
and most people don't know who she is.
I didn't even know he had a sister. And I want to get to that. Can you just let's take just a brief step back, and if you can, right, just connect the dots of how we get to Kim Jong-un being he's the guy. Like how do we get to that specifically?
Because names are the most important thing for these fucking arrogant pricks. They will not give up their god names. And all you have to do to try to figure out who's running the world is dissect all the fucking names that have the most money, and you'll find out which ones have god names. Kind of like Rothschild, which means the son of Ra.
Okay, all right. Interesting connection. I never thought of that.
It's not hard to find him. And Kim Jong-un's name translated in Hebrew will only give you an English translation because of letters, but it changes from area. So on a hunch, I changed the yods out for Hess. The Heh, it's just a hand for and the deviation is in Hebrew, it's a hand for the yod, but the Heh is a reveal letter. So once you Heh something, it reveals. And his name is like, I'll just pull it up here real quick. I don't need to guess and misquote myself.
It's the beauty of the internet that we have at our fingertips these days, right?
Yep.
You can just rip everything else up. So did you learn Hebrew?
I've self-taught what like why things, I learned enough, but the internet helps out a lot. I use a lot of the translators.
Translators? Yeah.
Where's that?
Yeah, I mean, Google Translate has been a blessing for a lot of that stuff. But I'm always curious too. Sometimes, like I know you've read the Bible, the Old Testament. Were you reading the original scripture and translated it? Were you reading an already translated version? I'm always curious, what that looks like. There's a lot of liberty taken in translations.
I did a lot of mine just through Bible Hub. And I usually use the King James version because the King James version, it's old enough and consistent enough to get me close enough to some of the earlier translations. So my hope was hopefully those were the closest, because there's been a lot of deviations and there are a lot of changes in some of the later versions, and that's why I try to get as old as I could. I tried doing the Hebrew version of just translating everything through Hebrew, and that's even a worse nightmare.
Intense, right?
I can imagine.
Yeah, I can't seem to find it, but I'll send it to you maybe later or something. But
we can always add it in context afterwards.
Is basically the head serpent of the soul ka of the tower of the main bloodline. It's like he's the head dragon. Because keep in mind, they don't do serpents, they do dragons. So he's the main, according to that name, which is funny because we're talking about the story of Cain and Abel is a serpent line. So he's, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why the symbology used, or spiritual symbology that people talk about, it actually doesn't change from Asia to England. It's synonymous across the entire world because it's the same thing used within all of our languages. Does that make sense? And so that's why I'm saying you can't say it's a different serpent. It's all the same symbology or symbols.
I just don't know how I feel. I feel almost like I can't even the word on it. Like listen, I know this is all well thought out research. I'm still going to put the tag of speculation here, but goodness gracious, golly gee, if Kim Jong-un somehow is the guy at the top of this, don't I feel like a prick because this guy is he looks like such a dweeb. Please don't watch this. I love you. You're the best. I'm going to get my hair cut in your name.
I called him a fat fucking toad 10 minutes ago. I rethought that 10 seconds after I said it. I went, oh shit.
That is crazy. I mean, listen, crazier things, right? Stranger things have happened. We look again, just right here in our own country. You see the leaders at the top of it, and it's hard to believe that those are the people in charge. I won't even get into how they got there.
I hope I'm wrong, guys. I just want to make sure. I want to hope I'm
wrong. No, I know.
But at the same time, keep in mind, if I'm right, making that knowledgeable thwarts the plan, because my point is when you look at all the racial issues right now going on, do you think that would have fucking played for 2 seconds with Charles Manson still around? Because that motherfucker went crazy saying, I told you, I promised you they were going to do this earlier, but because of MK Ultra, they couldn't do it because that son of a bitch knew too much. I promise you, he knew too much. And it's like, isn't it amazing? Now he's dead. Instantly, we start to have real fucking problems with race. And it's like,
yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, we talked about Charles Manson and MK Ultra actually in our MK Ultra video. There's a hat tip to everybody watching. Go ahead and check that one back out. And I talked earlier about recurring themes, and in a previous recorded episode, actually we recorded it yesterday while we're recording this. So for those people watching, it'll be a week prior. We talked about the Shakespearean authorship and who was Shakespeare. And it's funny because the patterns here are just a quick synopsis for those that didn't watch it, and then Todd, I don't know how familiar you are with the whole situation, but effectively, the theory that we were working with our guest was that Edward de Vere, who was it's from the Oxfordian line of conspiracy, had an affair with Queen Elizabeth, and then was Shakespeare, wrote all the sonnets, and then they were published in reverse. So one is actually the last one. And if you read them in reverse, it actually tells the love story of him and Queen Elizabeth having a child. And then all of the Shakespearean works, as you start to look at it from this lens now, Romeo and Juliet is about two lovers that can't actually come together. Caesar then becomes about him getting stabbed in the back. All the themes seem to apply like almost word for word of what the story was, because she wasn't acknowledging their illegitimate child, I guess, at that point, who would have then become next in line for the throne, which now also throws off everything that you're now telling us in terms of lineage, right? The parallels there, the patterns, it just, and Tim, I see you smirking there too. It's so wild that in the short time that we've been doing this, we go from MK Ultra to Shakespeare to the Bible, right? I'm talking about, this is the span of a week that we've recorded these things. And again, they'll come out separately for those watching on YouTube, but this is the span of a week, and the ties that go from one to the next are unbelievable to me.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, right, if you wanted to put like one common theme, or like I'd say the common denominator to all of it, whether it be what we're talking about tonight or Shakespeare or MK Ultra, right? What is it all about at the end of the day? Every conspiracy that we've discussed thus far, it's all about power and control, right? That is the common denominator. That's it. That's all of them.
No, it's not. This is going to blow you away. It's going to be like so fucking childish. You're like, but it'll make sense. Trust me. You'll be like, you got to be fucking kidding me. That's why they're doing this. And the answer is yes. When you have so much power that you can't buy anything, the one thing that is the most expensive thing, and nobody understands what this really means, and I'd like to I think we can nail it with what you started with, is legacy. People don't understand what legacy means. And thank you for the Queen Elizabeth story, because that's what I'm talking about. When you have a legacy like the Bible, where did you hear about Shakespeare? You were fucking taught about it in school. To have a legacy is to be taught about it within the social constructs of the system you're working in. These aren't just any random fucking people. They're all people in association because they own the copyright to fucking everything. It's got to be only their family. They're wanting to, their whole history of life is only their family members ever being mentioned. Does it make sense? That legacy, not only does that legacy feed the ego, it assures my son gets it, my fucking daughter gets it, his son, because at any time, because they got all kinds of minions that follow people and nobody checks nothing. They were like, but he's been a great family for 60 years. And everybody ignores the fact that nobody knows they've been covering up dead bodies for 50 years. They've just gotten away with it. You see what I'm saying? It is the power of the legacy, because now it's part of history and you have to accept history. So, and that's the true power of money buying legacies. It's future power. That's that name sticks around, that everybody knows my fucking name, like McDonald's or not. That's literally what and it's like, there's no way you can be that self-centered and fucking ego. And the answer is, yes, you can. Just like the Epstein shit and stuff like that. Half that shit isn't because, don't get me wrong, they suffer power issues. People who seek power find ways to prove they have it, and keep in mind, but some of those things in high egotistical sociopathic minds is, I can't prove that I'm a godlike figure until I do something that's an abomination. I have to be able to prove it. You see what I'm saying? And that's what
right. You become a chess piece to them.
Exactly.
You become a game, and it's. You see this all the time with rich kids, right? The super wealthy, their kids become degenerates. They're blowing lines, they're shooting up, and they're killing themselves. It's because they have so much money that they don't know what to do with it. They go around, they start picking on people and bullying because you're untouchable. And so that's to your point. that's what's clicking for me, is that it becomes this long-winded game for them, where now, because they've already achieved the power, now they've already achieved the money, they got everything they want. So what else can they do? Is let me see how far I can push these people and how much I can make them do before they break. And we even see that on a smaller scale, right? Like OnlyFans. People that are paying these OnlyFans, what are they doing? What are they actually doing? How far can I make this person on the other end of the camera go for $1? Depending on how desperate you are. So that's interesting, Todd. I think you're opening my eyes to a lot of different things here. I am still appalled by the Kim Jong-un piece, but I'm going to get past that for the sake of the conversation. I want to
remember that people struggle, and I'd like to just say this because I think it's something good to think about for self-reflection without making it sound like I'm insulting anybody. You have to think about that, because what I do, to understand me, all I got to do is look at other people, because what you do, I do too. You know what I mean? But when it comes to the inability to fight our desires and this and that, we got to understand that when we do that, what we fail to understand is it's the fighting of those desires, the fight to unrationally hit them. It's the fight to cheat them, to steal from whatever. Those are the things that society created rules for, so we can get out of the animal kingdom. It's not about personal feelings and fucking religious rules. The society that we're struggling in, you can think whatever you want, but the basis of it was built on, we agreed literally in every shape, metaphor, literal stances, we agreed not to act like the fucking animals. And that's why everybody has a right to be mad, because that also meant we took responsibility and this and that. And so when you have this huge widespread panic of people not working, living in basements, wanting to change your sex and do everything but fucking contribute, it becomes really difficult. And I think a lot of us in the middle are getting struggled because, and I say you, us in the middle, is you guys are in me are respectively in the same age group. And so I think it's fair for me to say this. They're mad at us, and they still are so flippin' stupid they don't realize grandma and grandpa are still running this shit. We've never, not ever, given a fucking choice. And when you look at how many Gen Xers are actually in Congress, people who have actually learned how to take care of shit themselves and actually did it because their parents, the same grandparents you love, they were incompetent for the last 60 years. And we need to let them go. Quit electing them. We got to tell our kids, quit electing grandma and grandpa. If you want to fucking fuck shit up and not elect me, fine. But quit electing grandma and grandpa.
Well, I got my theories on how they're getting elected, but we'll save that for another day.
Yeah. So anyways.
So let's bring it to the future now. One of the things that captivated me was sort of the subject, right? How do you change the world? And I'm going to throw that question to you. We know the context from start to now, right? And if we take everything at its word for what it is so far, the Bible and all its derivatives for every religion is created. There's a mastermind. There's a family behind it. Totally makes sense. We get up to today. We know who the singular leader is. How do you change it?
You do. It's a trick question, and it's the easiest thing that anybody can do, but it's always the hardest thing to find yourself doing. You do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because the consequences suck, but because it was the right thing. We can find a million excuses why we do the wrong thing, but what people don't realize is nobody's finding a reason to do the good things. You know what I mean? Yes, I got soccer practice with my kids too. I got this, I got that. I understand. But when presented and it's in front of you, your civic obligation is to address it, not to walk away and leave somebody else to do it. It's no different than the CEO that won't pick up the piece of trash and tells the janitor to do it. Everybody has a responsibility. And that's where it begins. It doesn't mean you have to put your hands on people. It doesn't mean you have to do a lot of these things. We have to start addressing things. And when friends say, and that's where it's tough, and it's really always where it's tough, if you have a good friend saying something to another friend that you know they don't like, it is your responsibility to tell them, you can't be talking to people. I'm both your friends, and I can't allow you to do that. I won't let them do it to you, which is strange because my grandchildren understand it when I say, If I don't hit anybody in my house, you don't hit anybody in your house. You know what I mean? Why is it that I can explain that to my 5-year-old grandson, but I can't explain that to my fucking 48-year-old friend? You see, and that's what it is. It's just as simple as you don't put up with it no more. Does it mean you have to put your hands on shit? No, you make sure that they know, bar minimum, because it takes a village to raise a child. If you're one person telling them something, there's no point in you getting in an altercation. But people are like little children. You have 200 people fucking saying, I don't think I like you doing that. They will get tired of doing it because they'll get tired of hearing it. Does that make sense? And it's like, but it means they have to give you a dirty look. And that's why a lot of times, and when I was talking to my wife one time, I said, I don't think a lot of women understand what it means to be the dad. And the dad of the house is required to be the bad guy. He's going to say shit you don't like, but he's not saying it because he's being fucking petty. He's maintaining the peace. And that means it goes for the person you said it to too, or whatever. You know what I mean? Those are the things. That's all that anybody has to do, is do the one thing we keep putting off. Just do the right thing and start raising the children and speaking out. Does it mean you get in other people's business? No. Case by case, as you see it, then it becomes your responsibility. And trust the outcome. You got to trust the outcome. And I don't know how much we got time left, but do I have time for 2 minutes? I'll tell you a quick one. Okay. I invited my wife into my business a few years ago, and we had some bad customers. Everybody gets them from time to time, you know what I mean? And she would sit there and she'd be like, and she'd get mad or she'd take it personal or this or that. And then I'd be like, look, she goes, well, you know, her biggest fear was like a lot of times when people try to extort you, you know what I mean? And I'm like, you don't get it. And this is what I told her. I'm like, you don't get it. And I'm like, that's why you're allowing me to be the ethical one, because I'm going to make sense. And she's like, okay. I said, if I'm wrong, I'll lose money. If I'm right, I'll get valued customers. My customers who have never been done wrong won't ever understand what I do right until they've seen it. So it's like, if you're, you know what I mean? I was like, you don't have to take business personal. In time and trust, by doing the right thing, it builds upon, and you have that whole line of trust. And that's the biggest thing that nobody understands. Point back, I took a $3,000 loan with no truck, only my hand tools, and made $1.5 million in 5 years. Just doing the right thing, because I don't think people understand. Whether it's good seasons or bad seasons, we live in a world so defunct that integrity actually does not only pay, it pays the higher fucking dollar. And it's like, go ahead, keep being a bunch of degenerates or whatever. I don't judge, because you keep making my life better, because all I have to do is what everybody asked all along. So anyways, that was a conversation about one wife. And she was like, because she was, and the key part being, she was in fear of how that action would retaliate. And I'm like, I go, I understand. So let me reverse it one more time. I said, the only possible best outcome can only come from best interest. At least you did your part. It doesn't mean the plane's not going to crash. All it means is you gave it every chance to survive, and you don't know what the worst case scenario is because you started with the best thing. Does it make sense? I said, it's like interest to the universe. I promise you it pays it back. And coincidentally, it's also, in my experience, why so many people struggled to talk to the universe. I know this is kind of slipping a little bit on my wacky side, but the point is, the universe will answer any question you want as long as it's not selfish. I promise you. The codes of the Bible came from the universe. Didn't care about it. It's not my cup of tea. My problem with the universe is I couldn't get this education system that I think is going to make a huge difference. Does it make sense? And if I can't build it, and that's one of the arguments I was having with the universe, because I even talked to the guy who's second in the world in virtual reality, who's spoken at the UN twice, and I couldn't get fire to start. And my wife's like, you've ran into everybody that would be the people how did it not work? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm an alchemist. I'm looking at the fucking recipe, and I'm like, I don't know. And finally, I got the idea that, and it's not your job. So my job is let the guy, the engineer that knows how to fucking build it, I only need to paint the picture well enough for him to draw the fucking plan. Does that make sense? I'm the blind guy in fucking some ghost scene where he's fucking being, whatever the fuck, it's a romance, right? But then that's the whole point. So I'm like, it's like, okay, so I just want to do it. And that's kind of where my mission has carried me through this whole thing. My goal never initially passed through the Bible. That is something that took me on a side jam. And then all of a sudden it's like, are you fucking, I got to talk about that. I mean, I'm from Oklahoma. Okay. I'm feeling like I'm being given this quest to fucking put my hands on the TV because God wants to give me a fucking jet plane. I'm surrounded by evangelists. Okay. I mean, I'm like the last thing I want to fucking do is sound like one of those guys. Okay. I'm like, I just want to talk to the guy. It's like he can say no. Anyway, so that's my wild journey, and so my life is nothing but from wall to wall Don Quixote. I mean, it's like my whole life's an adventure, and like I told my wife, I said I act like a fool most of the time, which is ironic because in business people don't take me serious. I've had to prove this like over and over. I mean, with all kinds of people are like, no, Todd won't. And it's like, my wife will be pointing like, yes, Todd will. My kids will even step in and say, yes, my dad will. Trust me, he will. And they're like, your dad's a fucking idiot. And it's like, they don't get it. I'm an idiot because I'm not scared of nothing. I'm living my fullest life. I don't give a fuck. To me, going to work is just a reason to fucking create an imagination that makes what I do fun and this and that. Does it make sense? It's like,
well, I think people get a little intimidated by things they don't understand, and if they don't feel like they can kind of control you or rope you in.
Yeah.
If you're predictable, people feel more comfortable with that because they feel that they can manage that predictability and maybe steer that to the outcome they want. If you're not, or they don't understand kind of what goes on in the background, then they get a little spooked because then they don't know that they can control you. Again, it comes back to that control thing that we were talking about earlier, right? It's like, I know a lot of the times when I talk in business, I can know within seconds who I'm talking to, how I have to act in that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sign of a good businessman. You're the same way, I'm sure. I know, Tim, I've learned this a ton of times in sales calls, right? Tim's been in sales for most of his life, excellent at it, right? And it's just a matter of just adjusting your tone, being a little more passive, being a little more stern, and whatever it takes to allow that person to feel like they're in control of that conversation to finalize the deal. So I can totally see where you're going with that. I want to pose, we haven't done this at all yet, but I think it'd be kind of fun just to kind of throw you a couple rapid fire questions. In part because I'm really curious about it. Do you believe in ghosts? Are they real, or are they something else like an alien or another frequency?
Or is it bullshit?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that question because my life is surrounded by paranormal. So let me give you an example. And I've had this happen with more than once with more than one grandkid. So you tell me, how weird is it when you're how old was he? About 3? When he first started talking to Abba.
He was 2.
Okay, he was 2. And we're talking about stuff like he'd be in the backseat of the car and be like and maybe like, what are you laughing at? Abba's funny. And they're like,
who's Abba?
Well, Abba's Hebrew for father. He's not.
So is your father?
No, none of us are Hebrew, and his father was absent. So it's like, and he's talking to him. And so as he gets older and the stories, advance, he takes children to father's house at night. He's got wings, and that's where they go play. The only rule is you can't sleep there. Nobody can sleep at father's house. Father's house has other houses around it, and most of the people that live on the same street are related to father, or the closest people to father, and all that's kind of funny and cool. But here's the thing: this is where things start to get, like I said, my life is surrounded with paranormal. An employee of mine who he got to know, she had her husband had experienced a tragic event. Her stepfather was murdered, and it was gang related and drug related and stuff. It's one of the things that happened, but at the same time, because of the nature of the culture and this and that, her husband was getting with some guys, and they were going to do some retaliation one night, apparently. And at completely other end of town, nothing. Middle of the evening, my grandson goes crazy, and you need to talk to her now. You need to call her. I just won't say her name because it's a private story between them. You got to call her. 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 And because when he would go enter these things, you got to call her. You got to call her. You got to call her. You got to call. And you just have to do what he wants and for it to process. And so she calls her up, and he's like, "Tell Ivan, stay there. They'll catch him. He's don't go." And they had the whole crew there. They were all drinking. They all had their weapons. They were going to go track down the murderer. They knew who he was, and they were going to murder the guy. And she's like, which tripped my employee out, and she's like, and he's like, "They'll catch him." And he's like, they'll catch him. And another unique, interesting thing that happened previous in the week is his other step family member had been pulled over for drinking and driving. Not a big deal. But when you explain it to a 3-year-old, you tell him he had too much strawberry milk to drink. And so when we're having this conversation with her and this lady about him and this lady, that he goes, "They're going to catch him drinking too much strawberry milk. It's okay. They'll catch him. They'll catch him." And 6 days later, they caught him drinking. He did numerous things like that. He went over to their house, never been there before. And even though there was kids in the room, walked right past the living room, right into the child's room that she just had. She'd been trying to work on having a child for a very long time. Walks right in there and stands right in the doorway. And everybody's kind of like, "Why are you going into here?" And he just "Do you see something?" He goes, "Well, yeah, the man. And he goes, he talks to the baby. He's never been in this house. He doesn't know this is the baby's room outside of what's there." He goes, "He talks to the baby," and they're like, "Who?" And he goes, "Him in there." And so they walk back in the living room, and he points to the picture of the stepfather sitting on the television. And she goes, "The fucking curtains will sit there and flow like the windows open." And she goes, "We don't have heat and air, and the window's fucking closed."
Like the hair on my arms right now, you can't see it in this camera, is literally standing up.
Yeah.
Tim, I saw you peeking your finger early on.
Well, I mean, you and I have had a million conversations about the paranormal, and you know that's my bread and butter, baby. That's my sweet spot. I love that stuff. But specifically, the very first podcast, when it was kind of just you and I messing around, right? We talked about the paranormal, and you asked me why I believe in the paranormal. And one of the things that I pointed to were what? It was kids, right? Because kids, okay, I guess, depending upon the age and what they're exposed to, could they pick up something on TV or something they heard? Yeah, of course they could, right? But generally, as a whole, there are things that kids know that there's just no way they should be able to know them. And so, Todd, when you started off and you immediately said your grandson, I mean, my head exploded. I was like, "Oh, I know where he's going, baby. Let's go. I love it." So, yeah.
Another interesting one is at that same age. Now, keep in mind, I think it's pretty clear. I don't go to church. Same. Wife don't go to church. She'll tell you she's a pagan. So when I say this kid has not been around any sense of Christianity at all, it was interesting that one day when my daughter was in the store with him, he seen a fucking Jesus card, and he fucking tripped out, and because it's like, how do they have a fuck? He's not cussing, but he's like, how do they have a picture of Father?
Wow.
Wild.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't expecting all of that. 2 more rapid fire questions for you. What do you think is more likely? Parallel worlds or time travel? Or neither?
The two aren't actually separate. Well, for starters, to help you understand the concept of where I'm drawing this information, I'm going to poke your brain here a little bit. What do you think you are? Seriously. I mean, I know you look in the mirror, but what are you?
I guess a ball of energy.
Okay, so why do you identify? I know. Well, it's kind of a feed question. Don't get me wrong. My point is, Why do you identify so much with your physical body?
I can see it.
It's tangible.
It's temporal. The real you doesn't have a body. When you die, you come back. Because in the concept of the universe, the entire universe, everything is fractal energy. And that energy is conscious. People don't realize energy is conscious. Just because there's different levels of consciousness doesn't mean it's going to have a conversation with you, but it doesn't prevent it from being fucking conscious. Does that make sense? It ascends all time and energy. So is time travel possible? The answer is yes. Time, because we live in a multiverse of everything. And here's some funny things. So doing what we're doing, just for an example, not only am I doing this with you, I'm doing this same conversation with every variation of you and Tim on every fucking timeline right now. We are actually making stronger time because we're doing this electronically through an actual electronic fucking network that supersedes time and space and is built. We are actually, by doing this, altering time. By building a stronger unified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I say that, you're doing it in a yellow t-shirt. I'm talking to black Tim, white Tim, Asian Tim. You're talking to black. You see them on in some shape or form. There's always these variations. All time does the same thing, and that's what makes it possible to occur in the same place, because it's not the same reality. Only the reality separates one fractional thing from the next, and what makes time it is all the common denominators, which is you, in between all of those times. So, can you travel in time? Yes, but not in the aspect that you think. You can travel.
Yeah.
You can travel two forms of time. Okay, let me separate time travel into two separate points. Time travel in the aspect of going into a different time period is possible, but you can't ever come back.
Why's that?
Because the moment you've left your timeline's already been altered, and
Because you left it.
Because you left it. Because keep in mind, as you're leaving your timeline, someone's also re-entering it, and it's not you. So it's already been filled. So how, in a world of billions of possibilities, how would you even know you were in the same reality when you came back? Because you don't need much variation. So you see what I'm saying? So it's kind of pointless, if that makes sense. Now, the other time travel is very possible, but only through traveling through time and space. For travel, for speed travel. Does it make sense? But that's altering time. You're actually altering time around you, so that way it's altered, because time doesn't have to exist simultaneously outside and inside. You only have to create deviations to warp it, and that causes like a landslide wave effect that can perpetuate anything, which is what they're trying to do to build warp drive and stuff. Does that make sense? The key part they haven't figured out is it's going to be found through sound, because sound is the most strongest thing in the universe, even more powerful than light.
Last rapid fire question.
Huh?
Sorry.
That's right. No, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, it's because
last rapid fire question for you.
Okay. Well,
ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do you have one more thought on that?
I was going to say that keep in mind, people look at there's actually four main components that build up the universe. One of those is unseen. You have what's positive, you have what's negative, and then the neutron, which is actually associated more with sound, is where time exists from. Sound exists because of the presence of the midline between the left and the right of the positive and negative. Does it make sense? Sound is the most controlling, powerful thing here, because in the negative and super positive world, the true masculine, the true Nate, you know what I mean? Nothing occurs there, because true chaos, everything happens at once, and everything's in perpetual motion constantly. And in the true masculine, everything's dead. It doesn't move at all. Does that make sense? So everything in between is the only place where time exists, and that's controlled through sound, because the others, it itself is its own prime. Does that make sense? And that's why a lot of times people struggle with string theory, because it's like, if I have, on the screen here, if I have this thing and this is supposed to do the opposite. Well, the problem is people don't realize you're looking at two independent things and you're not looking in the middle, because those are aspects of something that's connected. And that's not the focus of the item. My point being is it works like string theory works like a railroad or an axle. Yeah, if you spin this one to the right, this one spins to the right too, and the whole thing does this. You see what I'm saying? But that's not the main component. The thing in the center of its tension is what's being moved, and that's the actual item you're not looking at. Everything has 3 points, and that's my point. But there is that fourth thing in nature, which is the fourth thing, but that's what we're calling dark energy, fractal, things that pop in and out of existence, because that's actually what's occurring. Everything's currently present because the energy that we are on a super subatomic level, those quarks that are popping in and out of existence, they're coming into your energy body like a fucking magnet, and that's what's creating the illusion. You're actually being produced conceptually at 4 billion frames per second. Think about that. That's how you're moving and staying solid. You're traveling at over 4 billion frames per second. Does that make sense? There is no actual movement in time, only the skipping of the time, and that's done through this fractal energy, those quarks, as time presses forward. That's why the basis of all that time travel, if that makes sense. Did I do a good job?
For a guy who claims to be a plumber, you're sounding often like Sheldon Cooper, a physicist here. But
well, there's nothing I haven't studied. I'm a serial studier. I get bored. I really don't watch a lot of TV.
Amazing. It's an amazing trait. I'm not going to lie, and I mean that completely honestly. It's a great talent to have. All right, so the last question I want to posture to you, and then we'll kind of go wrap things up. If you believe in them, are aliens more likely to be extraterrestrial, or here on Earth, underground, living among us, or not at all? Or the only ones here? Nature
has a law. We will never find them until we're ready to find them, and they're not allowed to find us until it's time for us to be found.
When do you think that's going to be?
Well, let me summarize. It's the prime directive.
I'm waiting.
The prime directive is actually a universal law. You can't affect undeveloped life into the universe because the universal law prevents it entering the universe until it's time to mature. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah.
There's other life out there. Keep in mind, because so many things distort. It's like the question is when will we find them? That's the real. Right. When will we find our brothers, our sisters, and our variations? Because realistically, in some shape or form, all life is our family. Because the entire universe.
Right.
Of more nothing than life, our job as life is to take over the entire universe. That's their only fucking point. Live and just really live. You know what I mean? It's like, well, fuck, you didn't really leave me any real tough jobs here. Just all you gotta do is live. And it's like, yep, go everywhere the fuck you want. Fuck it up. Don't care. We got tons of them. It's like, wow. All we gotta do is figure out how to get out of here. So yeah, let's call Elon. It's like, let's get out of here. It's like, I want some pop shit, you know what I mean? I want some Captain Kirk fucking space puss or something. It's like, show me something new, because this shit we've been going through is just a little bit fucking overcooked, okay?
So, Todd, I have a question, right? And this kind of relates to what we just talked about the multiverse, right? You said there's other life out there, right? And I do agree with you. Do you think it's more likely that it's interplanetary or interdimensional?
I think that it really depends on. Keep in mind, even though there's life all over the universe, there's so many things to learn in life. Because the true nature and purpose of life, your conscious soul, me talking to you, and everybody's entire purpose being here, is because I'm going to tell you right now, you are one of the Creator's children. The whole fucking point of why we can even talk is so you can learn how to fucking create shit. And you will not ever know how to do that if you just don't live it. You have to fucking live it. You got to experience it. You got to experience the good shit. You got to experience the bad shit. And you know what? The sad part is it takes fucking forever. So one life after another, like a magnet being dragged over a piece of fucking steel, which is why we have a generation of kids being born right now that have ridiculous fucking IQs, is because we are actually coming into an evolution cycle where we're supposed to, and that's why this training program's so fucking big. The kids need this shit, you know what I mean? If they're going to be super smart, fucking program them, and trust me, our inheritance will be in the kids. Just give them what they need so they can grow up and help us later. And it's that simple. We're all here to just learn. Because at one point, like any child, and this is kind of like in the concept of trillions of light years from now, you know what I mean? You will have matured to the point where we can stand next to our creator and they look at it and you say, now you go have kids and see what you fucking think as far as it was easy. You know what I mean? Realistically, as above, so below. Why would that change? You know what I mean? What, because it's not as fast as we fucking want it doesn't make it real? And it's like, where the fuck are we going? That you're in such a hurry that we have to do it right now. It's like, we got eons. It's like, just enjoy the ride. Does it make sense? It's like, just enjoy the ride. You only have to fucking live and not stab your fucking brother. It's like,
I'll tell you what, this has completely blown away my expectations. Going into this, I knew this was going to be a fascinating one, and I kind of softballed it to Tim, saying we're going to deep dive into heavy religion. Tim, was it half of what you thought it was going to be?
Well, it was an unfathomable number of what I thought it was going to be. Dude, you're a gem. This has been mind-blowing, and this is not going to be the last time that we talk, whether it be on video and or off, and I'm very happy about that.
You know what? There's no such thing as too many friends.
Well, you got 2 new ones today, Todd.
Well, thank you. Well, I want to give you one bonus that's not part of the conspiracy, and I promise you, I guarantee you've never fucking heard this one. I can tell you what the moon is.
Let's hear it.
It's the fucking sun.
Bring us home, Todd. What is it?
It's a sun. It's an extinguished sun. It's where we got all of our water. Our planet did collide with another object. And this is the part that cracks me up. I posted this on one of the NASA channels a week ago and had some fucking grammar Nazi fucking, what do you know about fucking astrology? And I'm like, I know how to ask questions that you're not looking for. And I'm like, think about it. It's got a high level of hydrogen-3 like a sun. It's got fucking all the things that a sun would fucking have. And we have all this water that we don't know where it came from. And I'm like, where does water come from? And I'm literally explaining this as long posting. I'm just Socratic method fucking chewing her ass out. And I'm like, what is so hard to fucking point out some of the easy things that people fucking miss? I was like, think about it. It used to be a fluid. And because it had less mass than the Earth, all the fluid before it seized toward the Earth, which locked its lunar cycle, which is what makes it unique in the entire fucking universe, because no moon has a lunar cycle like ours. And you see what I'm saying? Too many things make sense. And they're like, well, it has less iron than the Earth. And I was like, it's because at one point it was all fucking plasma. You know what I mean? And that's my fun one for you. It's like, it wasn't a body. And I don't have to be right, but the point is if you look at what I'm talking about, which is interesting, nobody looked into that at any point, even though every solar system is actually more common to have 2 suns than one. Our astrologists don't know where our second sun is. And I'm like, it's right there. It's right fucking there. But this is where it gets super interesting and why I think it's cool. Because if it is the sun, you know what that means?
We're a lot older than we think we are.
Oh, no. We have our first tank of gas. It's raw. Insides would be raw sun energy.
Right. Interesting. So we tap the moon.
We tap the moon and we have all the gas to get to our next fucking house. Keep in mind,
I got to tell you,
we're talking about the primordial forces that created the entire universe.
Right.
What's the value of that? Because keep in mind, you won't have a better chance to get a hold of it if I'm right, because the only way to get it is with the fucking thing still on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's obviously not happening.
Better chance. That's got to be a type of gasoline. I assure you, we want to tap and put a drill on. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's going to put my fucking Hemi in another Hemi, and then it's going to have sex with another Hemi, and it's going to create a Tesla or something like that. It's going to be awesome. You know what I mean? It's like that's why I think the cool stuff's the moon stuff's cool, and I don't want to share that with you because, well, you seem like
I appreciate it.
You potential space nerds, and so Just pretend.
Huge one there. I've taken a lot of glances down at your shirt. I respect the shirt.
Yep.
A little Star Wars on the bottom, a little Barry Allen up top.
Actually, it's a plumber's. It's not. It's a trap. It's a plumber side.
Plumber humor.
Plumber Star Wars humor. Yeah, it's a trap. So, yeah.
Well, I just want to say, I think it's been a profound journey here for us, deep diving into some of the hidden crevices of history with our guest tonight, Todd Feehan. As we ponder the vast tapestry of stories and theories we explored, from the enigmatic origins of ancient civilizations to the cryptic clues left in our sacred texts, we're reminded of the incredible complexity of our past and the potential it holds to really reshape our understanding of the world. Remember that history is often more intricate and mysterious than it appears on the surface. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep seeking the truth. Join us next time for another episode of the Conspiracy Realist that promises to challenge the conventional and uncover the real stories behind the myths of our time. Until then, stay curious.